Hi, everybody. I think I'm on. Let's check. Let's check if everything's working. Yesterday, at the beginning of the live stream, okay, it's working. um, Turn down the volume. So, thank you, everybody, for coming on. I think everything is working today on day 1084. 1084 days since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. And I think it's day 1084 because I haven't checked in a while on the day calendar calculator that I have to use now because it's been so many days and so many things that are happening since we have been made the lead uh, investigators in our son's case. We have been made the media. We have been made the uh, uh, fight for justice, the ones that are establishing justice. Um, uh, it's it's just incredible that we have all these agencies, and yet um, we have been made the defenders of the Constitution. We've been made the Army. We have been made the Army. We have been made the also the generals because we care about the welfare and the health of our service members, so much so that we're willing to put our lives at risk, especially after knowing and understanding the situation with Vanessa Guillen and her brutal murder, the brutal murder of Enrique Roman Martinez, the um, the training to suicide of Elder Fernandez, the dereliction of duty, and more. We believe it's more. His mom believes it's more um, with Caleb Smither. And the absolute brutal murder of a whistleblower, another whistleblower. Of course, Vanessa Guillen was a whistleblower of Austin Hawk right there in the barracks room where he was let to bleed out all night long. The CQ let the former sergeant come in during COVID, June 17th, and go to his room and brutally murder Austin Hawk. And Austin Hawk was reporting threats on his life, and there was nothing done to secure his safety on a military installation. Nothing done. Okay? Matter of fact, um, the former sergeant was allowed on base during COVID and was allowed in the barracks by the CQ to proceed at 1 o'clock in the morning to infiltrate and brutally murder, not without a fight. There was a fight. Austin Hawk fought for his life, and not one of his battle buddies during a real battle for his life came to his aid. Not one of them even called the military police. Not one of them called 911. They just listened. Listened to the battle, the furniture breaking, the door coming off the hinge, the screams. They just listened to Austin Hawk fighting for his life, and then the silence, the silence, where he was laying on the floor in his barracks room bleeding out, and they let him bleed out all night long without calling 911, without even calling the military police. And that unit has suffered. And you might get really angry at them. But these are young volunteer sons and daughters, I know. But the retaliation is getting her head chopped off. The retaliation is so severe. What would you do in their place? You're talking about our warfighters, our trained warfighters, shaking in their boots because they are afraid of their leadership, because they have no one looking after their six. They can't even help their battle buddy. They just have to stand there and listen and listen, and then lay in their bed all night long knowing that Austin Hawk was bleeding out in the room over them and next to them. And they dare not, even though all of them had at least, there's plenty of cell phones, let me tell you, and not one call to 911 and the military police. Now, instead of getting angry at them, let's think a little bit deeper. Let's think a little bit higher. And I have so much breaking news for you today. I'm going to repeat the breaking news from yesterday, that we do have the name of the JAG that colluded. And the denying us, further denying us, on top of everything else, due process and transparency. So we do have that. But we also have information, because you see, we've reached the big leagues, and I told you that a couple months ago. And it's going to get very, very difficult because of that. Because they have 6 ways to Sunday, and I'm going to play that. I brought it up. I'm going to play that here. Let's see if I can get this on here.
But he's taking these shots, this antagonism, this taunting to the intelligence.
Okay. Let's see. Can you see it?
To the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical support,
let's do that again.
Getting back at you. So
this antagonism, this taunting to the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a
okay, so, and I don't think I had it all the way loud. Let me do that again. Sorry.
To the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this. Community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. Intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So
okay, so it's the leadership that has 6 ways to Sunday, because the leaderships in the military, the 44 4-star generals, that of course are serving foreign and domestic enemies, which is absolutely first and foremost in the intelligence community, because none of this could happen if the intelligence community that has 6 ways to Sunday to get back at you, um, if they were working for the American people, if they were working for the volunteer sons and daughters that volunteer to serve in the military, if they were truly defending the Constitution, then we would absolutely already have the information surrounding the disappearance of our son and the murder of our son. But because they are also corrupted and compromised, we have a compromised 44 four-star generals, okay? Because they're afraid too. They just want to keep their stars. They just want to, retire and get their CEO positions. They want to keep their lifestyle. And, I don't blame them for that. But what I do blame them for is they sell out our country and they sell out our volunteer sons and daughters. And they don't respect the lives of our sons and daughters. Okay, they don't. Absolutely, they don't. There's not one doubt in my mind that I'm wrong on that one. After 1,084 days, there's not a doubt in my mind. And that's why, like early this morning, I went out and I made a TikTok as I was walking around my garden and watering my flowers and listening to music, doing some chores. And I thought, I'm going to videotape this because I want to say good morning to everybody and I want to put forth some beauty, because so much what Find Richard Halliday talks about is so ugly. It's so ugly. Because our intelligence community has 6 ways to Sunday to get back at us. They absolutely know how to give us information about Richard, and yet they choose to cover it up because of what he was complaining about. Because they're up to no good and they're part of this, and they got back at Richard. The CID got back at Richard. The FBI got back at Richard. We have information that on the day that FBI man walked into the Dollar General store and under the eye of a CCTV footage camera told the cashier that the FBI had found Richard's remains in Mexico. Shh, right? It's a secret. And that they were looking for his remains in 5 places, which he said, he lost me there. That's because Richard was dismembered. Okay? And that day, when we got called, less than an hour after he did that, and we received the CCTV footage and also the video testimony of the cashier, and we had that in that day. We have information that that's the day that the FBI took over our son's case. Okay? They took over our son's case. We have information that happened. Now, that's very interesting, isn't it? Because I wear this hat that says, is the FBI hiding the remains of our son? And of course, that's the intelligence community that has 6 ways to Sunday that could easily call, they have 6 ways to Sunday to get to me. So they can, yeah, and I understand that. And they could easily call and confirm or deny what happened. But what they chose to do was say he was just a crazy guy, which is a lie. they decided to lie. They did not follow protocol. They withheld information. And I can list off I'm going to come back here to my notes. What they were doing, right? They were misrepresenting the facts. Okay? And they were coercing the witness because the next time I called Nadal Baim, his whole demeanor and everything he said had changed. And Lieutenant Colonel Bugado, and you know, the thing is we were hunting for the FBI man for months and months, right? And he knew that. And he didn't call. Lieutenant Colonel Bugado didn't call. So that is withholding information, which is denying us due process, obstructing justice, coercion of witnesses, and we have more witnesses coerced, the manipulation of findings of, and I would suggest here in the manipulation of findings, the manipulation of autopsy report findings, because if the FBI found Richard's remains in Mexico, they had to do an autopsy. And if they're going to manipulate Richard's file and Richard's archive, and they're going to scrub it of our key witness, if they're going to sanitize it of the retaliation that was constantly and severely given to Richard, then that is a pattern of manipulation of findings, manipulation of files, and then it's easily assumed that they would also manipulate an autopsy report because they have 6 ways to Sunday. You see, they have 6 ways to Sunday. There was also a disregard for any alternative explanations, and also the suppression that, well, I should have held that off for the last. I should say there's a collusion to conceal information and a failure to take action, appropriate action, to follow protocol. And I already mentioned the obstruction of justice. And lastly, not lastly, but additionally, I want to mention the suppression of the fact that Richard was a whistleblower, okay, and his whistleblowing files, because they absolutely had him, because we thought, since the soldiers had told us that the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday, we thought that he made IG complaints, but that's not the case. And then Boleyn told us that Richard had made CPS complaints. And so then we put in the FOIA, and we've been working very, very hard to get the CPS to release Richard's file to us with the complaints in it. They have not honored the FOIA. We've even paid $5,000 to get that FOIA information. They have not honored the Freedom of Information Act, which is illegal, and they need to be held accountable for that. Um, and why not? Why not? Well, on day 1084, uh, you know, um, we are getting more and more leads, and today's lead sheds light on why they have suppressed the CPS file um, to be given to us. Okay. Now, um, we thought that Richard had made 2 complaints, but our lead, that needs to be verified, says there were 3 complaints and to the CPS, which then would trigger the IG, which would trigger the CID, of course. But we're also told that Richard made CID complaints, and they're different from the CPS complaints. And so I'm going to read you out the 3 complaints that need to be verified. But I'm just telling you the information that's coming into us. Okay? That's coming to us because we do have an alliance within Fort Bliss. We do know the name of the person in JAG that prevented a key witness. Y'all, it just gets so, because we have the Judge Shook. I can tell you Judge Shook's name for the warrants and the probable cause, and he would know everything. Okay, he would know everything because he has to in order to rule, to do these proceedings on the probable cause and the warrants, and more and more. But there is another person in the JAG that participated in this, and we have that name also. And I'm going to hold off on saying that name just because I hope they do the right thing. I hope they do the right thing, and I hope that the general does the right thing. But we Team Find Richard Halliday, we want everyone to know that we do have an alliance now within El Paso to help us. And that gives us intel. And that is very, very important. And so we get intel from other places, but, they, these agencies that are supposed to be there for us, that betrayed Richard, have also betrayed Team Find Richard Halliday. And they've turned us into the investigator. They've turned us into the media. They've turned us into the intel agency. And so that's why I'm going to be transparent, and I'm going to give you the leads today. I've already posted them on Find Richard Halliday. And these are three allegations that Richard made to the CPS according to this lead. And now we are told that it started in January, about January 9th of 2020. Okay? January 9th of 2020. And that's very, very interesting because the retaliation happened very quickly after that. Very quickly. So the first allegation is Richard reported instances of child endangerment, physical abuse, and neglect involving specific children. He expressed deep concern for their safety and well-being, urging swift intervention. And I can't help, when I'm reading that, think of that 7-year-old child that was being raped in Leilani Hart's bedroom and wondering if that's what Richard turned in, and that's why, even after almost 2 years, that she finally decided that she had to put in the CPS, I mean, the CID and FBI complaint to protect herself. Um, I'm just wondering if Richard named that child. I'm just wondering because she submitted that CID complaint on the 22nd of July 2020. She had it notarized. Okay. On that day, we talked to the notary public. We talked to him. It is on record. He had it in his hands. He verified the complaint. We have the CID case number. We have the FBI case number. We have invited Leilani Hart to explain that, to come on and explain that. Yes, Dallas Hart can come on again and explain that because she reported him as a first lieutenant right there on Fort Bliss serving with Richard as being in an incestuous relationship while he was in uniform as an officer. Um, wow. But also that there was continuous child porn in her house. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of this complaint. I've just mentioned those three allegations, three complaints, three reports, three crimes. They're crimes. They're major crimes. And I don't know what the penalty is for raping a 7-year-old in your master bedroom by multiple members of your household. I know that Texas has the death penalty. Good. Good. And I'm praying for justice. I'm praying that there's an investigation into that complaint, and I hope justice is served. And when I read that Richard reported instances of child endangerment, physical abuse, and neglect involving specific children, and he expressed deep concern for their safety and well being, urging swift intervention, um, I can't help but think of that child because they had a daycare. And I don't know if that daycare was subsidized by the federal government, by the Army, because they were doing that at the time. They're still doing it because of, well, maybe not since the emergency intake center was taken down or halted. I hope it gets taken down and burned down to the ground. Um, should I say that? Uh, that's just a figure of speech because a lot of evil was perpetrated in that emergency intake center, and I'm glad that it is shut down. Um, I am a peaceful person. I want to make sure that people know that. That's why I'm at day 1084 live streaming every day from my home, mostly from my home, to get answers about my son. The second allegation is Richard went back and he reported allegations of criminal activities this time, including child exploitation, trafficking, and drug related offenses. These complaints implicated individuals. These complaints implicated individuals believed to be involved in illicit activities that posed a direct threat to the safety and welfare of children. I will read it again. Richard reported allegations of criminal activities, including child exploitation, trafficking, and drug-related offenses. These complaints implicated individuals believed to be involved in illicit activities that posed a direct threat to the safety and welfare of children. Look, y'all, this child sex trafficking, this pedophilia, it's been going on for a long time. It was happening big time in 2020. And my son told us, I will talk about anything but the Army. And he did tell me this, Mom, it's really bad. It's just really bad. I can't talk about it. It's really bad. This is really bad, y'all. This is really bad. And I'm going to be honest. In 2019 and 2020, when he was telling me that it was really bad, I don't know if I would have quite believed him about how bad this is. But I believe him now. And we also know that because they prevented us viewing the movie The Sound of Freedom. That movie has been made for years. This has been going on for years. And they block the airing, the availability to view this movie, to be confronted with the hard choices that our society needs to make to stop this. And absolutely, Richard would not put up with the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, the trafficking, the drug-related offenses against children. He would not put up with it. And if anyone knows his history, you would understand. Okay, the third time he went to CPS, this is what the lead is. Okay, it says Richard expressed frustration with the lack of intervention and action from the CPS regarding his previous complaints. He expressed frustration and the lack of I totally understand that, because I express frustration because of the lack of intervention and action from General McConville, from Lieutenant General Bernabe, from General Mealy, from the Secretary of the Army, from the Secretary of Defense, from all the way up to the top. And Richard expressed his frustration with CPS regarding his previous complaints, and he emphasized the urgent need for immediate attention. How long How long, CPS, are you going to protect the pedophiles? How long, CPS, are you going to allow 7-year-old children to be raped by multiple members of the family in Leilani Hart's master bedroom? How long, CPS, are you going to allow child sex pornography in the homes when it is being reported? How long? There is an urgent need. Richard is saying there's an urgent need. And he paid the ultimate price, y'all, and he's still talking. These are his words. There is an urgent need for immediate attention to safeguard the affected children and address the alleged criminal activities there on Fort Bliss and in El Paso. And Veronica Escobar, remember her. Remember her. Let's play that one. I wanted to play this one. Let me get it ready.
I agree with Mrs. Halliday that there needs to be an independent. I agree with Mrs. Halliday that there needs to be an independent outside third party. Together, we're going to look into what we need to do in order to involve the FBI.
Congresswoman Veronica Escobar calling for an independent investigation into Fort Bliss soldier Richard Halliday's disappearance. He has been missing for more than 2 months. The Congresswoman joined the Halliday family today at a rally where she announced that she would be working to involve the FBI to look at the possibility of foul play. As we've reported, the soldier's mother, Patricia Halliday, does
be an independent outside third party. Together, we're going to look into what we need to do in order to involve the FBI.
Congresswoman Veronica Escobar calling for an independent investigation into Fort Bliss soldier Richard Halliday's disappearance.
How long? How long will the media cover for Veronica? Vanity Fair Veronica. How long? How long will they not worry about the effects on their own families, on their own babies? How long will Veronica Escobar look into the mirror at herself and not at her constituents there in El Paso to protect them, the young and vulnerable constituents, and the volunteer sons and daughters that are so affected by this that there's 7 suicides in 7 months? That's the figure that our intel is giving us. How long? This is that video was 2020. We have 2023 right now. Remember 2020 and 2024. She wants to be your representative again. She wants to get those fake staged awards like she's some noble person. But she's not. She's the worst type of person. Very ugly indeed. Very ugly. Creating a lot of ugliness to stand in this world when she has the power to change things. We need to give the power to someone else. So the CPS complaints are really, they're very moving. Moving for the regular person. But see, these leaders, they have gotten, I don't know what, it's like they forgot, or they never were. Maybe they never were just a regular person. That maybe they were never taught to love their country, love the Constitution, which means loving the land and the people. I admit, I think about what has caused this, and my faith has given me the answer, but it's not easy to accept. But there you have it. It's there. These elitists, these people in position, they look down on us and they let us be the fodder. They let our children be the fodder, be part of an economic, um, an ugly economic plan. So, if you have any questions at this time, I can see them now. And also, I wanted to say we have another lead that was given to us that I want to mention because it is something that I think has a lot of weight to it. I'm trying to find it here in my notes because I want to say it just right. And it has to do with General McConville and Lieutenant General Bernabe. Okay, so there was a time in this, and you can look. I'm reading through my notes right now, y'all. Yeah. Okay. There was a time in these 1,084 days that the Army was trying really hard to convince us that Richard had committed suicide. They were trying to convince us. And the main purpose, we are told by Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe, for his visit to South Carolina to show us this video was to convince us that their suspicion, they couldn't say it was fact because but that their suspicion was that Richard committed suicide. And they backtracked on that because of all the information that was coming out that has since really debunked that notion. But there was a collusion, definitely. Before we received this lead, there was definitely a collusion that we knew of, that we have on record. We have it on record. We have it on record by multiple sources that there was a collusion to convince us that Richard committed suicide and that it fell apart. The whole narrative fell apart. And then they, wanted the, I don't know, ran off to Mexico scenario, um, which also fell apart because they cannot prove that um, unless it was on the 23rd of July, because it had to be on the 23rd of July that he went over to Mexico if they found remains in Mexico, unless they killed him, dismembered him, and then took his body parts over there to bury him. Um, and if they're the intelligence agency and it's 2020 and you have special passes, because Marlon Soto told me there was special passes, it would be no problem, right? I've already been through that whole scenario in my mind. Could that possibly happen at St. Teresa port of entry? Um, could that happen at the port of entry, especially during COVID, especially if you were an intelligence connected to the intelligence agent, or you were an intelligence agent? Could you get away with it? And I definitely know that they could, especially if they were part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which they were, and they had like a double pass, like you have um, a worship pass to get to the temple, and you also are a special agent in the CID, um, or you're connected to the intelligence, or you're connected to the AUSAs or prosecutors, or just the law enforcement community there, okay, which they were. Um, and these are allegations and suspicions, and they were, and it could happen, and that's what gives these allegations and suspicions that are getting very heavier by the day. Um, well, I'm already convinced, but we have to convince a court of law, right? So could that happen? Does it have weight? Would I be naive to think it couldn't happen? Would I be a bad mother to not even um, look at an alternative explanation? You know? So, absolutely, at that time, um, it was crazy. We were definitely getting a lot of information, and the Army, from the very beginning, because we were so late getting into this, they colluded. This is an allegation that they colluded to fabricate evidence, to manipulate the available evidence to support a narrative of suicide. Um, that's the allegation against General McConville and Lieutenant General Bernabe and others. That they are alleged to have colluded to fabricate evidence, or even manipulate the available evidence to support a narrative of suicide. And that that I had to share with all of you, because it has a lot of weight, because we have documented evidence on record to back that up, that there was a collusion to manufacture some kind of narrative that Richard had committed suicide. Um, it fell apart. It was debunked. Um, and so, you know, that was so criminal, y'all. It was so criminal, and we have them um, on record being criminals. And that's why the likes of Veronica Escobar gets uglier and uglier and uglier, because we have so much evidence, and she could create a hearing right? She could create a congressional inquiry, she can create a congressional hearing. And, one day the time will be right and it'll happen. That's, we knew that in 2020, in 2021, it was not going to happen. Okay. Just because they were all COVID crazy and political. Um, so we just have to be long suffering and patient, and our questions will be answered. So what we need is for everyone to share this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign off on this, and then I'm going to do another Facebook Live to give this same information, because I'm doing a test run for a few days. Um, yeah, because we need to get this information out, and I need to know what is the best method to get this information out. So thank you so much, everyone. God bless you, and we will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.